hello. I'm Kelly Wild, 78-year-old tranny tragic from Barnet, Hertfordshire. That's about 10 miles north of London. Now, why would I refer to myself as a tranny tragic? For the answer to that scintillating question, you'll need to check out my previous video. It's full of wisdom and fun and joy and hilarity. You'll find it hovering around up there somewhere. Now, this is the first in a series of videos. There'll be 25 in all, spread over a period of a year. Now let me see now. Yes, that means one every 2 weeks. The first video will be all about the 10 Great Plagues. Right now, the whole world, or at least most of us, are in lockdown. Apparently, President Pussy Grabber has threatened to inject Americans with Roundup. Good luck with that. My first video will be about the 10 plagues that the Lord God Almighty, Yahweh, Jehovah, whichever name you prefer, the 10 great plagues that this evil, sadistic, hideous, ghastly deity inflicted upon the innocent civilians of Egypt. Now, you probably remember little bits of this story, the bits that were jammed into your brain when you were a little teeny weeny little infant and your brain was malleable, and so you were likely to believe anything that was jammed into your brain. Chances are you believed it. You probably remember the part where Moses speaks to God, or God speaks to him. He's inside a burning bush or something. Why on earth the creator of the universe would hide behind a burning bush? A bit of a mystery, but don't worry about that. We'll go there another time. God instructs Moses to rescue the slaves from Egypt. Off they go. The Red Sea opens up for them, and all the bad people, all the bad Egyptian charioteers and so on, they all drown. That's probably all you know about that story. I'm going to teach you, if you're interested. With your permission, I would like to tell you the bits, the most important parts that the churches and the synagogues decided not to tell you, the secret parts. At the end of my videos, every single one, you will know more about that passage from the Bible than any Christian you're likely to meet. That's my promise to you. By the way, do you like my boobies? They're real, honest Injun. Welcome back. Can you read my t-shirt? Caused me a few problems one way or another. I got banned from a shopping centre on one occasion. Now, when I started this video a few weeks ago, it was the time of the Feast of the Passover, when international Jews all over the world celebrate this Feast of the Passover. So I thought, well, this is a damn good time to discuss the 10 plagues that the great god Adolf Hitler inflicted upon the innocent... Oh no, hang on a minute. No. I'm getting a bit confused there. No. This was an earlier god. This was the Hebrew god, Jehovah. That's right. The great god Jehovah inflicted the innocent civilians of Egypt with 10 horrible, diabolical plagues, just for the fun of it. He did it because he could. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And the Passover was the very last plague, where this great, magnificent Hebrew God, Jehovah, he murdered the firstborn sons of every Egyptian family. As I say, just for the sheer fun, the joy of watching them die. Another day, another t-shirt. The Rolling Stones. I've seen them 3 times in concert, and each time they get better. They're getting on a bit in years now. They're in their 70s, I believe. Not as old as me. Okay, well, here we go. Book of Exodus. Change of goggles required. I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, I apologise for the sunglasses, but I have bags under my eyes that I'm a bit embarrassed about. So if you don't mind, I'll continue wearing glasses. Now, we have to start off with something which I noticed. That I don't know whether anyone else has detected this, but soon you'll realise that it wasn't Moses who approached the Pharaoh. It was his brother Aaron. Moses was 80 years old. Aaron, his elder brother, whichever you prefer, was 83. He was 3 years older than Moses. But here's the problem. Moses didn't have a brother. Couldn't possibly have had a brother. If you remember, I don't know if you remember this, how the story goes, the Pharaoh insisted that all male children be murdered. Moses' mother, rather than have him murdered when he was a little baby, fashioned a little boat out of bulrushes, put the boy in the boat, floated him down the river, and the boy was rescued by the Pharaoh's daughter. Remember the little song we used to sing as a kid? Moses was a bulrush boy floating on the drink. Along came Pharaoh's daughter, and as quick as you could think. I don't know how it goes on, something like that. And that's it. He was raised. He was raised by the Pharaoh's daughter and the woman she nominated as a servant girl, slave girl, something like that. Moses was an orphan. Where did his brothers spring from? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. I am that I am. And he said, Thus sayest thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. Sounds like a bit of a Neil Diamond song, doesn't it? I am, she said, is it he said, she said, I am. This is this God thing. I am, you call me the I am. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, dear. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders. These are going to be wonders. Oh, this sounds good. Egyptians are going to get some wonders. Oh. Now Moses is really struggling with this idea. He's unsure how he's going to go about this. So God tells him, this is chapter 4, verse 3, he says, have you got a rod in your hand? And I don't think he's talking about his penis. He's talking about a staff or a stave or something like that, you know. We used to have them in the Boy Scouts, stick with a little P on the hook. And he says, and cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. The rod turned into a serpent. Well, that'd be a worry, wouldn't it? And the Lord said unto him, put forth thine hand and take. Oh, and then, you know, Moses was a little bit bothered by this. So the Lord said to him, grab the snake by the tail, and he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand again. It turned into a snake, grabbed the snake by the tail, and it became a rod again. Oh, thank goodness for that. That'd be a real worry. And the Lord said, put them on and put their hand. And then, you know, Moses was still a little bit suspicious, shall we put it that way. So the Lord said unto him, this is like verse 6 now, put thine hand into thy bosom. And when he did so, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. Oh no! Ghastly. His hand had become leprous. And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. And when he did that, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as the other flesh. So he put his hand here. Ooh, booby. His hand became leprous. He did it again. His hand was cured of leprosy. Well, yippee-doo. Okay, I've just moved the light. I hope that's a bit better. I could see that when I checked it, that the light was behind the camera and you were getting a shadow. Now this is, I must have read this next 3 or 4 verses more than a dozen times, maybe 2 dozen times, trying to make sense of it. And I have to read this to you. It's no good me just telling you. And it came to pass by the way of the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. So God Almighty, the creator of the universe, decides to meet Moses in an inn. Doesn't say whether or not it was licensed, but here's God, the creator of the universe, waiting in an inn to meet Moses in order to kill him. And it came to pass, I've said that. Then Zipporah, this is why I mentioned Zipporah earlier, Moses' wife, so you know who the hell I'm talking about here. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. This is, by the way, so you can check this out yourself because it's as weird as. This is chapter 4 of Exodus, verses 23 to 27. So Zipporah, this woman, took out a sharp stone, because remember they didn't have scalpels or Swiss army knives in those days. They used to circumcise the children with a sharp stone. That would have been hygienic. Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son. So her son was this bloke I mentioned earlier. What's his name here? Gershom. So her son, and Moses' son, that was Gershom. So Moses' wife slashes off Gershom's foreskin with a sharp stone and cast it at his feet. So this must be Moses' feet. And said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. Yes, it has to be. She cast the son's foreskin at Moses' feet because Moses was her husband. Then she said, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. Go figure. And the Lord said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. So Moses wasn't even there. He was wandering around in the wilderness somewhere. And he went and met him in the Mount of God, and kissed him. Okay, I finished this video a couple of weeks ago, but I was dissatisfied with part of it, so I chopped part of it out And here I am back again 2 weeks later, and I'll tell you what the problem was. I started reading directly from this book. What's it called now? Oh yes, the Holy Bible. My head was buried in the Bible, and I looked extra boring. I'm boring looking anyway, but with my head buried in the Bible. So just reading passage after passage, it's just going to send you to sleep. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to relate the story to you, and up the top here somewhere I'll put, or maybe down the bottom here, who knows, I'll put the chapter and the verse, and you can check it out for yourself. I'm not going to read everything, because not only that, this particular passage from the Bible, the first few pages of Exodus, are as crazy as. You couldn't get more stupid if you tried. Moses was raised, he was an orphan. The Bible skips several decades, because before you know it, within a line or two, he's an adult man and he gets into a fight and he kills an Egyptian, which pisses off the Pharaoh. How on earth the Pharaoh got to hear about it? Anyway, and once again his life is threatened. So Moses escapes. I assume it's somewhere, he escapes to Israel or somewhere like that. And he's a grown man and he bumps into some chick called Zipporah. So I'm assuming that when he got married, he was probably in his 20s, early, late teens, early 20s. But then the Bible skips 60 years. All of a sudden, Moses is 80 years old. What he did in between times, no one knows. But he's 80 years old and he notices a bush that's on fire. And he thinks, oh, that's odd, how did that happen? And he listens to the bush, and blow me down, guess who's hiding in the bush? It's God! Yes, God Almighty, the creator of the universe. Well, actually, and this is something not a lot of people know, it's not actually God speaking from the burning bush. It's an angel. That's right. God, gutless coward, didn't dare sit in the middle of a burning bush. He sent an angel down to sit in the middle of this burning bush and talk to Moses. And he says to Moses, hey man, I want you to go to Egypt and rescue all the slaves. Now, I mean, this is a God who was all in favor of slavery. He told the Jews to capture anyone they fancied and turn them into slaves, beat them, kill them, do whatever you like. His own people, God was pissed off, and he told Moses to go into Egypt, have a word or two with the Pharaoh, and demand that he releases the slaves. But at the same time, he tells Moses that there's no way he's going to let the slaves go, because just for a laugh I've hardened his heart, and every time he weakens and agrees to let the slaves go, I will harden his heart to make sure the slaves never get released. Ha 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 ha! What a jolly joke. See, this is what I meant when I said I'll teach you the bits that you didn't know about. You probably remember bits and pieces from this story, but did you know that this merciful father, so-called, had no intention of letting the Israelites go? He was going to get his fun out of making them suffer for as long as possible. He was hardening Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the slaves go. This is what the synagogues and the churches don't want you to know. So I'm being a bit of a rebel here. I'm telling you the bits that you're supposed to be ignorant of. And I will read straight from the Bible here, because you might doubt my word. Right, so what are we up to here? Chapter 4 of Exodus, and this is verse 21. I will harden his heart, talking about Pharaoh here, that he will not let the people go. Ha ha! I bet you didn't know about that. This bastard was going to string it out as long as possible. And here it is again, I noticed. Right, what are we up to here? This is chapter 7, verse 3. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. So this bastard was just having a joke. He was causing as much suffering as possible just so he could get a hard on. What a evil bastard. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the God you worship as Merciful Father. Now Moses is a bit unsure about all this, you know, he sort of lacks a wee bit of confidence. So he says to this God thing, this creator of the universe, here it is, where are we up to here? Chapter 6, verse 30. And this is why I didn't want to spend the whole half hour looking down like this. You know, it gets boring enough as it is. But here we are, chapter 6, verse 30. And Moses said before the Lord, behold, I don't know whether he said it like that, but something like that. Behold, I am of uncircumcised lips. And how shall Pharaoh hearken unto me? I mean, let's face it, if you've got dick sticking out of your mouth and your lips are uncircumcised, a bit tricky. But no, look, here's the thing. These guys, you know, the King James scholars, I think there were 16 of them in all who translated it from Hebrew or some fucking name. Translated it from Hebrew into German and then into English. They didn't really know a great deal. So what you need to do, you need to get yourself a more modern Bible. Here I've got 4 on the go here. I've got a New International Version. What's this one here? I've got the New American Standard Bible, which I quite like. And I've got some other shit here. I don't know what that is. It's all crap, but some crap is easier to understand than others. Now what he's saying, he's not saying he's got uncircumcised lips, for Christ's sake. He's saying that, look, listen, God, I'm an ignorant fucker. I can barely speak my own language, let alone Egyptian. How on earth am I going to communicate with the Pharaoh? That makes more sense, doesn't it? Now this is when it becomes as crazy as a Marx Brothers movie. For some reason or other, which isn't explained, This God thing, what's his name, Jehovah, he gets angry with Moses, and he decides to meet Moses in an inn in order to kill him. Yes, this bloke is going to send into Egypt. He decides, here's a good idea, I'll murder Moses. There's no explanation, it's just left to your imagination. So, I don't know, maybe Moses masturbated and spilled his seed on the ground, something like that, because that's a good reason to murder people, as you'll learn later on. And then his wife, Zipporah, you know, the zippy girl, she turns, somehow or other it doesn't happen. It doesn't say how Moses escaped. The next line, the next verse, Zippy girl says to her husband Moses, I'm going to chop off the foreskin of our son. I forgot to mention that sort of somewhere in between the age of 20 and 80, Moses has a son. And she says, I'm going to chop off his foreskin. So she grabs a flint, that's right, it's not a scalpel, it's not a Swiss Army knife. She grabs a sharp bit of stone and chops off her son's foreskin. Dip, 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 dip. And she throws the foreskin. Trust me, I mean, you might think I'm stupid. I might well be, but this is straight from the Bible. She chops off her son's foreskin and throws it at the feet of Moses, who isn't there. Moses isn't even there. He's off in a wilderness somewhere. And yet she manages to throw her son's foreskin at Moses' feet. Go figure. Now I will actually read this to you, otherwise you'll think I'm bullshitting you. So this is chapter 4, verse 24. And it came to pass by the way in the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, Surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let him go. Now I'm not quite sure about, so who let who go? We'll look that up later in one of my earlier Bibles. Then she said, she repeateth herself here, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. Catch this. And the Lord said to Aaron, by the way, I hope I've mentioned this elsewhere, Moses had a Poe's brother called Aaron who was charged with doing the translation because apparently he was reasonably educated. Aaron was 3 years older than Moses. Moses was 80, Aaron was 83. And the Lord said to Aaron, Go into the wilderness to meet Moses. Moses was in the wilderness. How on earth did Zippy-Doo-Dah girl throw her son's foreskin at Moses' feet when he wasn't even there? And Aaron went and met him, Moses, in the mount of God and kissed him. What a load of old bollocks. And now you've got a page and a half here. There's all this discussion about building bricks. They were short of straw and stuff to make bricks with, and this goes on and on and on and on. Ah, bloody hell. You can understand why I decided to separate this video into 3, because this is just part 1 and it's as crazy as can possibly be. Now this is God speaking. I can always tell because it's capital letter. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty, but by the name Jehovah. So it actually refers to God as Jehovah. I thought it was always Yahweh or JHWH. But here it is, chapter 6 verse 3. Here's God informing someone, Moses, also, that refer to him as, he's one moment he's I am you, but now he's saying I'm Jehovah. This is where Moses is still unsure. He's still not convinced, you know. I mean, burning bushes and rods turning into snakes and hands becoming leprous and then not leprous. Moses is still unsure. Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of the land. Finally we got there. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. You're going to hear all about these wonders very shortly. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And Moses was 80 years old. That's 80. Actually, you know, you really need to, the more recent a Bible, the more likely you're going to get, you know, to the truth. You haven't got any of the original documents. Everything's lost. So all you've got are translations of translations of translations, and then interpretations and interpretations of those translations. Oh God! But look, this is what these clever buggers reckon. He's saying nothing to do with uncircumcised lips. But Moses said before the Lord, behold, I am unskilled in speech. How then will Pharaoh listen to me? Okay, that makes more sense than circumcised lips. So anyone who's interested in the Bible, you really need to have I've got 4 different Bibles on the go, you know, checking different things out. Don't ask me why. I'm more interested in sex or music, but okay. Where do we get to here? So God has instructed Moses to invite Aaron, his brother, who couldn't possibly have existed, to do the translating. And he says, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart. God, it's said this so many times. When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, show me a miracle, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And here he actually does it, right? Verse 10, chapter 7. And Moses and Aaron went unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before the servants, and it became a serpent. But here's the problem. Oh, God, there's always a problem. The Pharaoh's magicians did the same thing. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. So here we've got Aaron casts down his rod, it turns into a snake. The sorcerers and magicians of Pharaoh, they do likewise. They cast down their rods, or at least their enchantment. Whether they maybe they flop their dick out or something. I don't know. But anyway, they cast down their enchantments, and Aaron's snake it was hungrier than Pharaoh's snakes. You know, it sort of missed out on its cornflakes. So Aaron's serpent, his snake, gobbles up all of the Pharaoh's snakes. Oh dear. Oh. So they must have been pissed off because they've probably been feeding them for decades, and now they're all gobbled up. Oh, it's in the Bible, it must be true. I hope you believe it. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refuseth to let the people go. Well, of course, his heart's been hardened about 20 times before we even started. Thus saith the Lord, this is verse 17 of chapter 7. Thus saith the Lord, in this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. Well, thank Christ for that. We finally got there. And now I'm going to give it a bit of a miss for the time being. This is what I said earlier on. That is part one of this dreadful, monstrous story of horror and cruelty. We've just started. I'm sorry if it's all been confusing. I'm as confused as anyone, if not more so. So we'll let it go at that for this first part of 3 episodes, all about the Exodus. You will know more about that story than any Christian you're likely to meet. That's my promise to you. And I think I've just fulfilled part of that promise with this first episode. Hope so anyway. Well, now we come to the serious part of the program. As you can see, I'm suitably dressed for the occasion. This is known as the sacrament of the burning bullshit. I'll let you in on a little secret. I have 2 identical Bibles. One I keep intact as my reference book, and the other I tear to shreds and sacrifice to the gods of reason. The reason I do it that way is because I often need to refer to my main Bible, and if I've torn out the pages, chances are they'll be the very pages I need to refer to. They're both King James authorised versions of the Bible. The reason I stick to those, even though there are easier Bibles to understand, is because these are the most well-known Bibles. These are the Bibles that I think most people were taught in school. These are the Bibles that appear in most courts of justice and so on, you know, where you have to take an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. An oath that contains little else but lies. Oh well. Anyway, let's get to it. By the way, in case you're wondering, this fascinating creature behind me, she featured in a documentary all about sex in Berlin. Looks interesting. Once all this plague is over, I might just check it out. Find out for myself. See if it's sexier than Barnet. I have in my hands the most evil, the most wicked, the most sadistic, and the most disgusting book ever published. The Holy Bible. And this is what I do to the Holy Bible. Second page. Third page. There are, of course, hundreds more pages which we'll get to shortly. By the way, have I introduced you to my great-grandfather? Hello! There are only 3 pages from the book of Exodus so far, but trust me, there are lots more to come. This is known as the sacrament of the burning bullshit. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Bye bye, Bible. All gone. In the words of the late great Thomas Paine, English-American revolutionary, the Bible, I detest it as I detest all things that are cruel.